Chapter 12. Miranda. Naomi threw open the front door and stomped up the stairs to her room. I looked over at Kevin and Mum, who both sat, mouths open, watching the whirlwind that had just powered through our house. I got up, closed the door, then quietly ascended the stairs to Naomi's room. I gently knocked on the door and entered. She was already pacing her room, clenching and unclenching her fists and muttering to herself. Sitting on her bed, I watched her pace some more, then I put my hand out to stop her. What happened? I've had an argument with Lewis. She turned around to face me. Actually, it wasn't even an argument. I asked him some questions and he stormed off along the beach. He's so infuriating. He's always pushing me to answer about our family, my studies, life here in Eden Cove. But as soon as I ask him questions, he takes off. I don't know if I'm angry at him or feel sorry for him. He is guarded about his life, isn't he? Naomi nodded. And why does he get to poke his nose in everyone else's business but keeps a wall up about his own life? She started pacing around the room again. Then she stopped and her attention was on me. But you must know something. You find out information about people quicker than anyone else I know. You've been working with them. What do you know about Lewis? I shrugged. Not much. That's hard to believe. When have you ever struggled to get to know someone? Within 30 minutes, you can discover someone's birthday, where they went to school, and what they have for breakfast. It's one of your mum's superpowers. The family is always teasing me about my small talk abilities and how quickly I'll get to know someone. But somehow it hadn't worked with Lewis. We worked well together, but he hadn't let me in. Perhaps he was looking for someone else to open up to. I reached out to Naomi and gently drew her next to me on the bed. I continued to hold her hand and let silence fill the room for a few moments. When Naomi was upset as a child, touch and silence calmed her down. It's still the best way to reach her when she's struggling. As her breathing slowed down, I continued. I hate to disappoint you on this one, Naomi, but I don't know much about him. I know he loves being part of our family though. That's why he's invited to dinner most nights. Sometimes people aren't able or willing to share their story, but by just being you offer them something they're looking for. Jesus told us that when we offer a drink, a meal, or shelter to anyone, we're offering it to him. He didn't tell us to give and then ask for the person's innermost thoughts. We serve and we let Jesus take care of the rest. Naomi leaned against my shoulder. Do you think he believes in Jesus? I think he does. He has joined us at church a few times and sings along to some songs and seems familiar with it all. I put my arm around her shoulders, then kissed her head, breathing in the scents of her hair products. Lewis may be outgoing and confident, but that doesn't mean he has an easy life or has things figured out. I honestly don't know much about him, but I have picked up he doesn't have an easy time with his home life. He'll talk to us about it if and when he's ready. Until then, be his friend and pray for him. How can I be his friend when he keeps winding me up? I reached over and pushed her hair back from her face. I know it can be hard, but you have a beautiful stillness and peace that I suspect Lewis needs. Be the calm in his storm. But what if I don't feel calm when I'm around him? I laughed and squeezed her closer. It just raises the stakes of the challenge. Naomi raised her eyebrows as I hugged her goodnight and left her to mull over our conversation. The next morning, the beach was quiet and cool. No tourists at this early hour. Only fellow swimmers focused on their morning exercise. The water was still, with only the gentlest of waves meandering towards the shore. The gentle rhythm of the sea was just what I needed, and I suspect what Naomi needed. My morning swims were proving therapeutic and energising, although I doubted my slow strokes would be of much use on days when the waves thundered. While other swimmers sped off in the crawl, I was happy sticking with my slow breaststroke, keeping my face out of the water and taking in the beauty of the shoreline and the horizon. Naomi was swimming beside me. She had joined me in several swims, which gave Sarah the freedom to enjoy her swims with Pete. When we reached my personal turning marker, an old house that stood proudly beyond the beach, we turned to swim back to the starting point. With the rising sun gathering strength, I enjoyed the warmth of my skin. Another reminder that for me at least, sea swimming would probably be reserved for the warmer summer months. Even in the midst of summer, the water was freezing. I would never be able to cope with the winter temperatures, but that wasn't something I needed to figure out today. Today, I would simply enjoy participating in something I wasn't responsible for. It wasn't long before Sarah and Pete caught up and passed us, the ripples of their wake causing the water to lap onto my face. Sarah pulled a funny face as she passed. I smiled as I watched them, not because of Sarah's comical expression, but because I'm certain there's a brewing attraction there. I was pleased for Sarah. She's had a tough time being single since her husband left. I said a prayer for my friend as he increased the distance between us. By the time they were several metres ahead of me, the waves returned to their gentle calm and my face was mostly splash-free. I paused, floating in the water for a few moments before stretching my muscles once again, enjoying the feeling of my body moving through the water, all in a gentle rhythm. It reminded me of the verse in Matthew's Gospel that Mum had been talking about. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. Out here in the water, the verse made sense. Worries were always vying for my attention, but this morning I chose to remain in his unforced rhythms, enjoying the peace and movement of the rippling waves. We returned to the beach, letting the sun's warmth dry us as we rested for a few minutes. Eden Cove was waking up. Small pockets of activity surrounded us. Wild swimmers walking along the sand, making their way to houses or cars. Dog walkers ambled along the sand while their dogs enthusiastically ran into the waves. Cara, our current next door neighbour, jogged in front of us, the wet sand offering her the perfect running track. We waved as she ran past. By the time Cara reached the lighthouse, I returned my attention to Naomi. How did you enjoy your swim? She turned her face towards the sun and smiled. It was nice. And how are you feeling after our chat of last night? She ran her hands through the sand. Okay, I guess. I'm just confused by it all, and I don't know where I stand with Lewis. But it was helpful to know you also don't know much, because if he's not even told you, then it's no surprise he hasn't told me. Well, you never know. You may end up being the one he tells. Our conversation was disturbed by the sound of Kevin calling for Benji. I stood and glanced around, catching sight of Benji chasing Malcolm through the trees. Laughing, I collected my swimming things. Come on, let's go and help catch Benji before he runs through everyone's gardens in pursuit of Malcolm. The following day was Naomi's last day in Eden Cove before travelling back to Reading for her exam. And while her recess anxiety had been decreasing, there were still little telltale signs that she was anxious. There was nail biting and distracted staring into space and not engaging with the surrounding conversations. As I sat in the kitchen, journaling my thoughts for the day, I began singing Here Comes the Sun. It was perfect for a day with blue skies, sunshine and a high of 29 degrees. The chorus of the song was my prayer for Naomi. The words Here Comes the Sun became You've Got This, Naomi. I smiled as the summer tune played through my mind. With the chorus changed to a prayer for Naomi, the verses became my to-do list. The first verse was a campsite task for today. The second verse was my shopping list, put together after a quick check of the fridge freezer. There was a verse about spending the afternoon lazing the garden with cool drinks and ice creams, and then a barbecue tonight. And I added a verse about speaking to Joshua, a reminder to tell him to be kind to his sister, especially today. I know he doesn't intend to be mean. He thinks he's being funny and doesn't realise the negative impact of his words. The joy and challenges of different personality types in one house. I walked to the campsite praying for a morning devoid of issues or site maintenance. While I was checking through the booking schedule, Lewis arrived, minus his usual bouncy step and cheery grin. Naomi's questions and frustrations about Lewis ran through my mind. However, with incredible willpower, instead of launching into questioning him, I left it and waited to see if he offered any details. Kevin would be proud of my resolve. He was always teasing me about getting into people's business. After our morning chores of cleaning the toilet blocks and kitchen area, I glanced at Lewis. He kept his focus on the computer screen in front of him, clicking the mouse, closing himself from conversation. He should know by now that wouldn't work. Lewis? Ignoring his lack of eye contact, I persisted undeterred. Naomi is going back to Reading tomorrow. Her exam is the day after. He gave little reaction. I thought a barbecue tonight would be a nice way to cheer her on. Are you able to come and join us? He shrugged. Wouldn't you rather it was just the 5 of you? I've already invited Ellen and Sarah, and you're practically family. We'd all love you to be there. He shrugged. It was time to ask the question. Are you okay, Lewis? You don't seem your normal self. I'm trying to work through some stuff. I took a deep breath as I watched him pretend to focus on work. My attempts at a conversation hadn't been a resounding success, but at least I got him to agree to join us tonight. You know where we are if you need to talk. Despite the clouds of Lewis's mood, Here Comes the Sun continued to play in my mind. After a beautiful afternoon in the garden, watching fat bumblebees journey from flower to flower, eating ice lollies and spending time with Naomi and Mum, it was time for a barbecue. My talk with Joshua must have worked because he was on his best behaviour and he didn't tease Naomi once. Or maybe my threat of singing to him at the school gates on the first day of term if he didn't comply worked. It's a mum's job to find the right motivation for her children. While Naomi packed her bag and crammed in an hour of last-minute revision, Kevin helped me decorate the garden. We hung bunting along the back of the house. The garden table was decorated with a colourful table cover and party plates. With the decorating accomplished, Kevin assumed his role as barbecue chef, grilling the burgers and sausages. I popped indoors to prepare the salads. A quick peek into the living room confirmed my suspicions that Naomi and Mum were having a final knitting session before Naomi's departure. I stood and watched them for a few seconds. There's something beautiful about the grandparent-grandchild bond. I was glad they had each other this summer. Mum's recovery was going well. She was back to her usual self, blossoming in the surroundings of Sycamore Street. Perhaps it would be good for her to move to Eden Cove. When I walked back to the kitchen, Here Comes the Sun was playing on the radio. I smiled as I mixed the salad. With a delicious aroma of food cooking on the barbecue, our guests arrived. I'm not sure that I think of Sarah, Ellen or Lewis as guests. They all fit in as extended family. Lewis sat next to Joshua, still quieter than usual. From time to time, Naomi and Ellen glanced at him. Dinner was almost over when Naomi received a video call from Rebecca. Naomi held up her phone and we all waved at Rebecca. With a picture-in-picture, she took a photo of all of us and Rebecca in one shot. Joshua jumped about, doing his usual goofy poses, bringing about groans or laughter from the rest of the group. Naomi disappeared for a few minutes to get some time alone chatting with her sister. As soon as Joshua finished dinner, he hugged me, then asked if he could go out with Harrison. I gave my consent. After all, he had been on his best behaviour. You want to come, Lewis? Joshua asked. Lewis shook his head, then Joshua bolted from the garden. Interesting. Mum yawned and declared she was ready to settle in front of the TV. I stood to clear away the dinner things. I'll give you a hand with that, says Sarah as she collected the empty plates. Kevin followed us into the kitchen to make coffee. By the time we'd finished cleaning and making coffee, Lewis, Naomi and Ellen had disappeared. Kevin, Sarah and I settled into the comfy garden chairs. The evening was warm and full of the best of summer. Insects darted about, illuminated by the lowering rays of evening sunlight. The scents of the garden floated on the warm breeze, the perfumes of roses and lavender in a beautiful embrace. Sarah took a sip of her coffee, then turned her attention to Kevin. Where were you yesterday morning? I thought you were going to join us for the wild swim. Wait, that was yesterday? Kevin put his hand on his chest. If only I'd known. Sarah looked at him with her eyebrows raised. I giggled at the overacting going on between the pair of them. Ignore him, Sarah. He thinks he's funny, but we both know he's too scared. We'll show him up with our amazing swimming. Sarah grinned. So are you enjoying it then? I was right when I said it would be good for you. Yes, I'll give you this one. You were right. It is a wonderful start to the day. But I'm telling you now, I won't be continuing once the weather turns. I will only be a fair weather swimmer. Sarah shrugged. I'll take that. Although continuing through the winter would be amazing, don't you think? Just imagine how energised you would feel swimming in the cold darkness of winter. I shuddered. I'm trying not to think about that. That sounds terrifying. But don't let me stop you. I sipped my coffee, avoiding Sarah's gaze. You seem to be getting on well with Pete. Now it was Kevin's turn to sit up and offer instruction. Sarah, don't admit anything. You'll never hear the end of it if you do, he winked. However, Pete's a good guy. Sarah laughed. If I had any other friends in Even Cove, I would ditch you for them. But alas, I'm stuck with the pair of you and your wild insinuations. As the laughter died down, Sarah returned her attention to Kevin. Any update on the job front? He shook his head. The announcements will be made soon. How do you both feel about it? Kevin answered. Okay, the threat of redundancy isn't good, but as the college has been through a few rounds of layoffs, I've learned not to worry about it. And it's not as if worrying would achieve anything anyway. Kevin and Sarah looked at me. When had I last thought about the implications of Kevin losing his job? When had I last worried about it? I wasn't sure. Instead, my focus had turned to others, Naomi, Lewis and Sarah, and others in Eden Cove. I smiled as I looked over at my friend. I actually feel okay about it. At first, I was worried, but I've been praying about it, and that has helped a lot. And do you know what else has helped? Sarah shook her head. The crazy wild swimming. Sarah punched the air. Yes, she shouted as she flashed a massive grin. Another win for the swim. I laughed at her enthusiasm. I'm not sure I would go that far, but it's been helpful relaxing in the rhythm of the waves, reminding me to find Jesus' rhythm in my life instead of my own. My comment was answered with silence. Sarah never seemed to be sure how to respond to my comment about faith. She drained the last of her coffee and excused herself. I need to go now. I've got an early delivery coming to the shop tomorrow morning. I walked her to the garden gate and waved her off. As I looked back to the garden, Kevin exited the house carrying glasses of juice. The solar fairy lights now brightening the garden and hundreds of little lights encouraging us to sit outside a while longer and enjoy the summer evening. I reached out for Kevin's hand. Do you think I said something that offended Sarah? I know she doesn't always love it when I talk about faith. Kevin shook his head. No, you're fine. She knows faith is important to you, and it's good to remind her why. Thank you. You always know the right thing to say. He gave a low chuckle. If only. With darkness descending, the voices and laughter from the beach gave way to the gentle lapping sound of the waves rolling onto the beach. The day was ending as it had begun, enjoying the gentle rhythm of life with family. When we made our way indoors, Kevin opted to watch a late night movie where his bed was calling me. As I flopped into bed, You're a Good, Good Father came to mind. I hummed it through twice, praying for Sarah, for peace and for joy. I prayed for continuing peace for Kevin. I prayed for Lewis, that he would know he was safe with us, and for Naomi in her exam. I may also have prayed for Lewis and Naomi in their friendship, and maybe more. Singing the song a third time, I let go of all the prayers for others and embraced the time of being alone with Jesus.